Well, hello, friends and neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here. And we lost a great actor. Don't know him as a man, but certainly someone who brought a little joy into all of our lives across a long career. And so I thought I'd buy a bottle of Jim Beam and share a few thoughts, maybe pay tribute to Sean Connery.
3, 4.
Thanks for staying with me. I don't know how you guys feel about James Bond. It's often fun to talk about, who's our favorite Bond character, and think about the current, tenacity and power that Daniel Craig brings. But for me, Sean Connery was always James Bond. And woke up, heard the news that he had passed, and saw in my feed, as would make sense, right? I have a lot of whiskey, bourbon people in my feed, and I saw that image of Sean Connery wearing a much sharper suit. I think it was maybe even a yellow shirt, and had the words about the taste distinct of the man Sean Connery, the whiskey or the bourbon Jim Beam, something like that, and thought, I'm going to go grab a bottle of White Label and pour it. I'll talk about the whiskey and remember Sean Connery. I wonder what your first memories are. For me, it was James Bond, right? It was those early Bond films. Yeah, nice nose here. It's sweet, lots of vanilla, lots of corn sweetness. I think it's classic Jim Beam profile, which would be about 77% corn, 13% rye, 10% barley. Yeah, Sean Connery, really James Bond, absolutely, right? That was the first time I really would have noticed him in film. And just that rugged charisma and that unique, thick Scottish accent with kind of a slurred speech would draw me in every time. But then, he kept showing up in lots of my favorite films. I liked him in The Untouchables. Boy, what a powerful role. He just seemed to get tougher as he got older. I liked him in The Rock. He was a really old guy in that one, but he still seemed to be, tougher than anyone else. And what else? Oh, Hunt for Red October. That might be the one to pick and watch and kind of remember some of his career. I wonder what your favorite Bonds or your favorite Sean Connery films are. Tiny bit of that characteristic roast nut or roast peanut that I can get in Jim Beam. I really like a lot in the portfolio from Jim Beam. I like Knob Creek. I like Booker's a lot. They have a lot of strong bourbons, but I will admit I had to go out and buy this just to shoot a little bit of a tribute to Sean Connery, because I don't generally buy White Label. It's 40%. It's considered straight bourbon and there's no age stamp, so likely it's 4 years. Well, it would be 4 years, could be older. Well, let's see how it tastes. I hope you have something nice in your glass. Cheers to remembering a great man and a great actor, to Sean Connery. Being only 80 proof for 40% for bourbon, it ends up being a fairly mellow, fairly relaxed. The sweetness is pretty high, almost a powdered sugar, vanilla. The oak is there. There's oak. Not overpowering, but thankfully there's a little undercurrent of that, but quite sweet. I think it probably has a broad appeal, and certainly I think the label says #1 selling bourbon in the world, something like that. World's #1 bourbon. I think Jim Beam sure makes a lot of this. Coming back to Sean Connery, I think there was some a little more odd roles that he played that actually I remember quite a bit. The Highlander was an odd film. I recently was talking about that to my son, and I was obviously talking about it with such interest. He went and found it and watched it and came back and said, "That was a terrible show." But there was something about, man, I forget the character's name, but right there, the immortals, and they're running around, and he was a Spanish person, I think, and boy, that movie made an impact on me too. Also, the older, not the Temple of Doom. What was the one, Indiana Jones, when he was Indiana Jones Sr.? Boy, I actually like that show quite a bit too. I can't think of a time when, I mean, he made many movies that didn't grab me or didn't appeal to me, but I always felt his rugged presence, that charisma would draw me in, and I really, really liked watching it quite a bit. Nose hasn't evolved much. Well, maybe a little more oak, almost a little more char. You know, for a very affordable bourbon, I like it. It's not going to change hearts and minds. Actually, I wish bourbon had been in its heyday when he shot the film, and he could have been shooting a bit more of a unique expression as opposed to the entrance white label. But it's good bourbon. It's probably, if I was rating it, I mean, this is a neck pour, and I really haven't had it in a long time. As I said, it's pretty entrance, pretty standard bourbon. Same time, I actually find it nice. There's no bitterness for me. A little sweet, but not overwhelming like some Canadian whiskeys can get. It thankfully has some nice charred oak that comes back for me, that holds it in check. And, you know, probably somewhere around a 3-star. Certainly nothing beyond that, but very affordable, decent bourbon. So once more, this was really an idea, as I said, when I woke up and knew that we had lost one of my favorite actors, that I wanted to shoot a very short tribute. I'm not excellent at recalling all the details of films, the actors, or even the lines in films that I've appreciated. For me, probably my favorite Bond would have been the last one. I think he shot 7 films as James Bond. And he had, I think the ad for this one was in the 60s. What was that? You Only Live Twice. But then he had said he wouldn't do any more Bonds, and he came back. And the one that I recall, most likely because it was probably on repeat and lots on late night television, was Never Say Never Again, which was based on the Thunderbolt book, I think when was that released? Anyways, I've heard a rumor that it was Never Say Never. It was called that because Sean Connery had famously said, "Well, I'll never shoot another Bond film," and they were already Roger Moore was already starring as Bond, and then they came out with Never Say Never Again, and that certainly is the Bond film that I will recall the most when I think of Sean Connery, because it's certainly the one that I've seen the most with him in it. Well, I hope that you had a moment, if you had some Jim Beam, that maybe you poured some. Not that I don't know if this was his favorite drink. It's just certainly an iconic image of him when he chose to do the ad campaign for Jim Beam. So hope you have something good in your glass, and I hope you have fond memories, or maybe even have the time to watch whatever is your favorite show, whatever is your favorite movie that Sean Connery was in, and just remember his work. So, to Sean Connery, to good memories. Cheers.